Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Community FC. We're back after an international break, so it's been a little while for some footy content. So I'm really excited to get into this episode. We're obviously back with another episode of the Roundup Review. This is episode, let me check my notes, 7 of the Roundup Review. And for all you FPL managers out there, we're going to be talking about game week 12. So as always, I've got my co-host Rich. How you doing, mate?
Very well, thank you. I cannot believe that it's episode 7, by the way.
Yeah, it's crazy. I looked the other day with the My Clubs as well. I was like, oh, we're literally in double lines on the channel. We're getting
Nice.
consistent. I love it.
Nice.
But again, the more content, the better for everyone out there. I mean, yeah, this is going to be an interesting week to talk about. Everybody that knows the team that I support, Manchester United, it's going to be one of them. Rich has already joked about me in the kind of pre-lobby. Do we need to get the timer out already? I will try to keep it short. I have quite a lot of points to talk about on the complex thing. So if it goes on for 10 minutes, it's going to go on for 10 minutes. That's just the way it is. I'm sure anyone would be like that if it was their club and their manager this has happened to. So, but yeah, I mean, we'll kind of just crack on, I guess. I mean, we're going to talk about that. Not yet. We've got another game to talk about first. Even if there wasn't as many goals, I think it's a better one to kind of start off and kick off on one. But again, I just wanted to point out another, I think we titled Roundup Review last week, goals, goals, goals. Well, this week they just decided to just get even more goals in. Like some ones we'll get onto later, some of the 3-3 games, like not expecting them for some of those teams. So it's been a spicy week for all sorts of reasons. So the first game that I want to really talk about this week is the Liverpool Arsenal game. So I don't know if you want to kick off on that one.
Yeah, so it's another, like you said, another goal fest. Liverpool at the moment are just they're insane, really, aren't they? Their attacking ability is phenomenal. I think they worked. Their defense was effective enough to blunt Arsenal as well, because they've been scoring a few goals of recent past, and their form's been decent as well. Arsenal, we said, episode 1 of the Roundup Review that Arsenal, one of those teams, will have bad spells and then have a good spell, and they've been in a good spell. So this was always going to be a good game, a good matchup, and I honestly thought Arsenal might nick a goal or two. But shutout, brilliant for me in fantasy football, and for a lot of people out there as well who's got the likes of Alexander-Arnold and Van Dijk in there. But I mean, the possession stats, tell it all. Liverpool with 63% of possession, 19 shots compared to Arsenal's 5, and converted 4 of them. And yeah, I think it was a well-deserved win.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the crazy thing about this game is the first note I've put down, which is what you wouldn't expect to, was it was actually a really easy win from Liverpool, but only after this like spark. And for me, that was the whole, I think the commentator said at the time, it was like 30 minutes, 30 minutes. So it wasn't that great. It was kind of tactics. They were trying to break each other down, figure each other out. But the spark normally happens on the field. The spark happened off the field, which set the game off. And obviously, Klopp and Arteta going at each other, and they were furious at each other. Obviously, both got booked by the referee, and that actually was the spark that the game needed. Because after that, it was so different. And I just thought it was really interesting that it came from the managers. Obviously, it was over the challenge where he kind of catches him in the neck/face. Again, I don't think it was malicious, and I don't think it was on purpose to do it. I don't even think it was that bad, but the reactions were like, wow, and that kind of really kicks the game on there. What else I got? Yeah, Liverpool they were just too much to handle for Arsenal after that. They just kind of lost their heads, and then Liverpool got into their rhythm and their flow, and they were just playing it around beautifully, using the wing backs like Alexander-Arnold to perfection, like Trent. And yeah, it was just some really, really good football today. The other things I put down there were I feel that Nuno Tavares had a horrible game for Arsenal, not only for the Jota goal where he kind of just let him through and stuff, but it literally since the start of the game was just constantly giving the ball away, like losing possession. And that's, you're not trying to pick him out. He doesn't play very regularly, but that is a massive weak point for them, that game. And another thing I thought was really funny to point out was even though Ramsdale let in 4, right, I still think he's going to win Player of the Month, because he still pulled off some ridiculous saves in that game anyway. And the current form that he was on, I was like, yes, he might be letting in 4. But I still think, we talked about in previous episodes, Mendy being the best keeper in the league at the moment. On form over the last 3 weeks, Ramsdale's probably better than him. So it's a really interesting one. And then, yeah, I just think Liverpool, Trent looked great. And Salah, was Salah. And I think the commentator pointed out it was really funny. Like after he got his goal, you could see he was like going for it and going for it. And he's like, I need my goal. I need my goal. I'm not happy till I got my goal. And then the last goal that they scored, and he crossed it and passed the ball across for the cross for Trent to whip it in for Firmino at the back post. They were saying, would he have done that if he hadn't got his goal? Or is it now that he's got his goal, he wants to actually give the assist? And I was like, it's a really interesting point. But I think Salah's pretty unselfish most of the time, but he's got that hunger and it's like, I have to score, I have to score.
Interestingly, I think we are probably seeing now could potentially be one of the Premier League greats, Salah. I think in a few years' time, we could well look back at this and say, actually going back now, he was phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean,
that Liverpool shirt. I certainly, he's already over 100 Premier League goals. He's well on his way to getting up there in those top Premier League goal scorers, and he's not been in the Premier League for that long.
Yeah, I was watching another podcast actually today, and they were literally talking about being an off week. It was filmed for the international break, and they were like, "Oh, all-time Prem players," and it was quite funny because loads of them were mentioning names, and they were like, "Oh yeah, I'm got in my team. Yeah, he's in my team." And the classic, well, one of them literally put Trent in it, and he put Salah in it. And I was like, Trent may be too early, but again, exactly the same argument. I think you can definitely put him up there. I think you'd have him and then maybe Ashley Cole if you were looking at swapping the wings or whatever. You could do that for kind of that left back position. But they were saying about Salah, and I was like, absolutely. Like he's, if you're looking at those, especially more kind of, you could kind of have him up front depending on the position and formation you were playing. But as a winger, there's lots of players like a Ronaldo, a Hazard, a Salah. Like you're going to have to make some really tough choices because you might not want to drop them in that striker position because you've got so many people. I mean, that's a whole other podcast we should do another time but it is so difficult trying to think of those people that you'd 100% say them because there's so many options. But I think Salah has to be in that option. He's on fire. He's phenomenal form. Purple patch is lasting ridiculous amounts of time, and he just looks great. So fair play, Liverpool. They look good. And they're up there, definitely. I think it's the 3-horse race at the moment with City, Liverpool and Chelsea. I think we'll talk about Chelsea later. Well, I think some people are seeing their favourites. I think they may be slightly more dominant in form at the moment, but we'll see. Yeah, I mean, got anything else to add to that one, or shall I move on to this?
No, I think that's pretty cut and dry. I don't think Arsenal showed anything too magical or special. They've got some good young players coming through.
They've got some fabulous players. I just think
watch this space, but I do think they're lacking the experience. I think the older players they've got in their team aren't necessarily leaders,
and they're not on form.
The likes of Aubameyang and Lacazette should be banging in more goals than they are. I think a lot of Arsenal goals are coming from their midfield.
Absolutely, and Lacazette's kind of leaving. Aubameyang doesn't look like he's that bothered since he signed his new contract. Which is an interesting one. So it's
classic.
Yeah, like I agree with that. But yeah, Smith Rowe, Saka, I'm forgetting loads like Tomiyasu. Like they've got loads of upcomings. Yeah. And obviously Ramsdale as well being the next one. Anyway, I think I would agree with that. Arsenal have been good, but they just fell apart after that spark, and they just couldn't handle Liverpool. They didn't have the answers.
I'm scared because we've got Liverpool this weekend. So
we'll get and we've got Chelsea.
I might not turn up to Roundup review next week. So
we'll have a week off. We'll have another international break, shall we?
Yeah.
So speaking of not wanting to do this, obviously I've, as we pointed out last week, been having the brunt of it. Whose great idea was it to start a podcast when your team is doing so poorly? That'd be me, and we'll get onto this game. So I'm actually going to kick off with you, like I've done a few times, because I do have some stuff to say about the game itself, but most of the stuff I have to say is kind of off the pitch and stuff related. So let's kick off with you. So obviously, for anyone that isn't aware, Manchester United lost 4-1 to Watford. We'll let you kick off.
It was Watford played phenomenal. Let's just put it out there. So a lot of the times when you get these sort of results, the focus is on the bigger team playing negatively and playing badly. And there's no denying United played badly, but Watford also played phenomenally. They played very, very well. Arguably could have been more goals. De Gea, he went
again
years without saving penalties, and he saved 2 in the space of
they were
minute.
Poor penalties, though.
Yeah, shocking penalties. But you know what? The minerals it takes to stand back up and retake a penalty after you've missed the first one, respect to Sarr for that. Again, I think up until the Maguire red card, I think you probably still were in it. I in fact, if Maguire hadn't have been sent off, and let's be honest, those two yellow cards, shocking. Rookie challenges. There's a lot of jokes going around about Maguire in an England shirt versus Maguire in a United shirt, and you can see why. Because
that, don't worry.
Yeah, well, I'll let you cover that in a minute then. But yeah, Van der Beek, well taken goal, very unselfish from Ronaldo. And yeah, I think at 2-1 with Maguire on the pitch, I would have put some money on maybe United equalising, potentially even winning by the end of that game. 4-1 is a little bit flattering, I think. Obviously, a little bit of an implosion at the end there for the 92nd and 96th minute goals. But realistically, I think Watford deserved it. They doubled the amount of shots United had with half the possession that United had. They were just on it. They were on form. I think they smelt weakness in that United team, and it's something we've seen the last few weeks. Is United don't seem like they want it at the moment, and it's maybe not something that we're used to seeing from United. Maybe something we've seen a bit more of in the last few years. But yeah, I mean, I guess I'll hand it over to you. I don't really have a lot more to say. Just well played. Oh, and also a little shout out to Ben Foster for an assist. Has got more assists per games than Jadon Sancho, I believe.
It was he played well, and he had a good save early on in the game, which kind of could have changed stuff as well. And he had some great distribution. Like I think it was twice he did some phenomenal up, taking it down, passed it across goal. So really well played from them. I agree with everything you said. I don't disagree with anything you said. So I think that's absolutely fair. I don't think you can disagree with that. I mean, I'll talk about the game to start off with. There's a lot to go through in here. So in the game, it was same old look. We look lost. We look like we've run out of ideas and we don't know what to do or how to play. And that's part of the issue, like whether that's team members not knowing what they're doing or just not having any, identity of what the coach is trying to get across to them. De Gea says, embarrassing. We don't know what to do with the ball, is literally quotes from his interview. Maguire. Let's talk about Maguire and then I'll go into this. So Maguire, I literally joked, I guess it all links into one. So somebody was talking to me about it before the game and they were like, oh, are we going to see, United turn up? Are we not going to? And I was like, do you know what? I never am that negative in my team. I always believe we can win. But I said, don't be surprised if it's Ranieri getting a win today. And then they texted me when we got a goal back and they were like, oh, it's going to be the classic United comeback kings. And I was just like, I didn't really say much because I was like, we'll see. I know the form will run. You know your team better than anyone because you watch them all the time. And yeah, if it wasn't Maguire getting sent off, who knows? It could have been a classic United comeback. We're always the team that comes from behind. In fact, most of this season, last season, and season before that, we like to go a goal behind before we even start playing football. We start the slowest out of any team in the Premier League by a mile. But the Maguire thing, I joked before saying, has Ole got to put everyone in a United shirt, in an England shirt, in the tunnel to trick Harry Maguire into thinking he's playing for England? And then he actually might learn how to play football again. Because he's been shocking. As you said, they were incredibly poor challenges, and he just gets caught out of position. He doesn't. Whether it's the weight of the United shirt, the captaincy, I don't know. But it's not even going forward. Like he scores goals for England, but it's about the other things. Like yes, in some of the friendlies he had some questionable defending at one point as well, but they've got away with it twice. But most of the time, he looked a much better player, and he looks like an entirely different player than he does in a United shirt leading them.
I mean, to be fair about that though, let's be honest. A lot of the teams that we play as a country are naff.
Yeah, but again, but there's still two things I can think of in my head where they were going to run on, and one of them was offside, and do you know what I mean? And he still, but he got away with it a bit more. But yeah, no, I agree. But yeah, you get punished a lot more in the Prem. But if you're the captain, you're one of the most expensive, if not still the most expensive defender in the Prem, you need to come with some kind of pedigree. And I think if Rafael Varane is fit and injured, he is by far and above the best centre-back we have at the club by a country mile. So that's what it is. De Gea, again, I was going to say, yeah, I constantly say it every week at the moment, but it could have been more even because of him getting some saves. Double save from him again. Yeah, he's really come in, and especially from the penalty form, not saving 38 in a row or something ridiculous. And then now it's he saved I want to say 4 out of 5 or something like that. So that's great from him. He's been great, and he's obviously getting frustrated with everyone. I think the Henderson thing really pushed him back to his old David De Gea form, and he's really come out and gone, no, this is my shirt again. You're not having any of that. And we'll get on there are some positives. There was actually very, very few positives, but we'll get on to some of them. Donny van de Beek, breath of fresh air. As soon as McTominay was yellowed so early and gave away that, like, effectively started the after Bruno did the ball in the box, he was for the penalty. He was getting stuck in, and it's hard. I love Scott, but he goes in full all the time, and maybe he doesn't need to at times. And so he was trying to win the ball back, wasn't playing very well. Was one of them was like, okay, this isn't going to work. So they brought on Van der Beek, finally gave him a chance. If anybody watched the game who's listening out there, you would know from about the 10th minute, the United fans were chanting for Van der Beek and singing a song the entire way through the match. Even before he came on, they were like, let's see something different, let's give him a chance. He came on, took his chance well, and actually played really well and provided so many opportunities. Sancho didn't have the world's best game, but considering he got a start, he did look good again. I think there was he put in quite a good few crosses, and you could see that if he plays more regularly in his right hand position where he should be playing on the right wing, then you're going to see the stats that back him up for ridiculous amounts in Dortmund and for the England squad. I have no doubt about that. The reason that he hasn't been is obviously Mason Greenwood was in such hot form and was keeping him out of the squad. Quick shout out to Mason Greenwood. The reason he didn't play and get well soon is he's got COVID-19. So we wish you the best, star boy, and get well soon. So yeah, that's really I've got to say from the game. The rest of it, I'm going to spend about 5 minutes talking about a couple of issues with the club, with the manager, and with the fans. So I'm going to start with the fans because I know you're going to agree with this, and I'm just sick of it. Over the weekend, I've been sick of most of the United fans anyway for about a year now. We talked about it before when the team lineups come out and stuff. It was always all out anyway. After this loss, and I saw it the week before as well, people, I say fans, and I'm air quoting for any audio listeners right now, fans that, supposed fans, I should say, that are saying all over social media, Reddit, Twitter, whatever, going, I'm not supporting this club anymore. I'm going to support Salford City until the OLE's gone. I've watched them for 33 years. This is abysmal. I don't support them anymore. I'm going to support a different team. I'm just going to put it out there. Sorry, and one more thing, I've got to say that, the biggest one, wanting your team to lose so that the manager goes. If you want your team to lose, or you say that you're going to support another team for a while until your team's good enough again, I hate to break this to you, you're not a fan. You're not a fan of that club, and you're not a fan of football if that's what you're saying. Because I'm sure you can agree with that. If you've got Southampton fans saying you want your team to lose, you're not a fan of the club.
No, I mean, I'll tell you what, I'll take this and I'll touch on it during when we talk about the Saints game later, because there is an element of that right now at Southampton. I think it's not to the extent of United, because we've never been a big team. We've never been a team that you support for trophies. A lot of, especially, people our age, late 20s, early 30s, a lot of people grew up with United being a dominant force. Now, if you follow a football team because they win trophies, I'm sorry to tell you, but at some point that run's going to come to an end. There is no such thing as a immortal dynasty in any sport at any time. No one will just be the best. So you're going to have to just suck it up and accept that. I think a lot of these, especially United fans, and you know how I feel about this topic as well, because we've spoken many times, I think they're too privileged. You've not had to suffer relegations. You've not had to suffer we can't afford this player. He's only 18 million, but he's out of our budget. 18 million for a player at United, that's someone who's going to go and sit in your academy or sit in your reserves team. 18 million for a team like Southampton, that's a first team player. And if that player doesn't succeed, you've wasted 18 million pounds.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have that pressure of, are we going to have to fight to stay in the league this year? So the fact that you're on a poor run of form right now really is just embarrassing that fans are acting like that, frankly.
Yeah, it's like I said this before. I touched on it last time about the OLE out protests that were going to happen with the Glazers protest. Don't mix the two. I don't care if you want the board to sack someone. You can have that opinion. And as I said to you, I've been OLE in until about a month ago, and then I said I think it's time, and I still think it's time. We'll get into the both sides of that story again in a second after we touch on this subject. But it doesn't matter. That's not the way you act. And if you're a fan of a club, it's thick and thin, as you said. It's no matter what. And yes, lots of United fans haven't had to suffer that kind of stuff. I saw a ridiculous one from someone on Reddit who was saying, I've supported Manchester United for 33 years. I'm from Manchester, I live in Manchester. I'm going to go watch Salford and support Salford until Ole's gone and until we're getting our act together. I was like, then you're a Salford fan. You're not a United fan. Like, even though you said you're a United fan.
Don't come back.
Yeah,
come back.
And that is the good thing. Everybody in the comments below was like, don't come back. We don't want you. I won't use explicit language that lots of people said. But I was just like, that's the point. Like, in a fan base, you want a fan base of people that care about the team and care about the club as a whole. And it's not about winning. Like I told you, and I've said this before, if United with that Super League stuff got relegated 2 leagues, fined like £100 million, something ridiculous. I'm making this up. I would still support them and I would watch them through all non-league. I would support, whatever they got up to, they're my team for life, no matter what. And that's how you should be as a fan. So we'll move on. But I just wanted to put that out there. You're not a fan if you think like that. And I'm sure everybody who is probably watching this as part of Community FC and as a, actual realistic look on life and know about football, you'll agree with that point. Let's move on to the actual manager sacking slash parting ways, because it's not a full sacking, I don't believe. It's a really interesting one. Football's the only the only like business that I've seen where you can have like a mutual sacking. So they had a big meeting, lots of different journalists and outlets were reporting different things. There was a meeting, it was an extended meeting, and basically it was Ole going, okay, it's time, the board going, we're pushing you, it's time, but him still getting some kind of severance. He only signed obviously his 3-year contract in January, but he's still getting some. But unlike lots of other clubs, and we'll talk about some positives and some heartbreak first, which I actually had loads of friends message me. How many other managers, I'm asking you this question, sorry, how many managers do you know that have a leaving video?
0, because the thing is, and what makes it different, and what's been annoying to hear a lot of United fans recently is Ole, he cares about the club. Like, it's not like you've got a manager who doesn't give a shit. It's not like Mourinho at the end of United, where he did not care at all about the club. Ole, if you cut open Ole, he bleeds red.
Yeah, and
he is United through and through.
Yeah, and I think that's super obvious to see from the video. I even had other fans going, that made me feel something, that video. Imagine how we're feeling. Like, everyone was putting like the crying emoji, being like, someone's cutting onions tonight, lads. Like, it was, that really got me. And it's because there's an extended interview. If people haven't seen it out there, so just go watch it. It's like a 1.5 minute video of him just talking about the future of the club and stuff. And also, I'll quickly touch on, it's the players. He went and put his hands up to the crowd, the away end at Vicarage Road on the weekend. And Bruno Fernandes, this is such a telling thing, and another reason that I love him even more. Ole was like, I'm sorry, thank you, and was doing this like he normally does, but people are like, this is probably goodbye. And it was. Bruno literally was pointing and going to Ole, going, it's not just him, it's everyone. And he was pointing to the whole United team, being like, it's not all on him, it's us collectively. And everyone, all the Twitter thank you messages from players, the everything. And in the interview he goes on and says, obviously I'll be supporting the club, and he gets really teary when he's talking about Carrick taking over, and he's like, he's a top lad, they're going to do a top job, because he cares. He's been a legend for this club, and that was his dream job, so he's worked as hard as he possibly can. He's sad that it hasn't worked out more than anyone, because he wanted that. And the interviewers are like, you're always welcome back at Old Trafford, you're a United legend. The fact his response is, I hope so, breaks my heart, because that 20 Ole legend banner was up before he was manager and should remain up. And everybody should think about this. I'm going to get onto another point, and then we'll quickly talk about the board, and then we'll move on, because I'm apologies for everyone, but I kind of need to get this out there from an interesting United perspective, but also just off my chest as a personal record anyway. So the thing about it is he has come in and tried his hardest. But yes, it's been utterly awful the last couple of games, especially. The form this year, apart from the opening game, has been terrible, right? No one's going to deny that. Everyone's going to see that. We've
managed to scrape a draw against us, to be fair. That was good of him.
So, and in the Champions League, we had some really downside stuff as well. Ronaldo has saved us a million times, and that's just what he does, because he's an elite athlete, and that is what it is. So that helps get some of those results onto the line. But everybody seems to forget all the time he's been manager before that. So he took over from Mourinho, a completely fractured squad is the word that everybody's using. He's pulled United together as a team. He's pulled United together as a fan base. Everyone was believing again. That run that he had, we have the longest away run in Premier League history by like 5 or 6, like even more than that games now. And we were outrageous on the road. He also gave us some super memorable games. The PSG game where it was 3-1, and then we obviously 3-3 on aggregate and we won. And Marcus Rashford scored his first ever penalty he took to beat them at PSG, is one of my all-time favorite Manchester United nights and memories. Like, it will go along there with legend for those kind of nights. Let's not forget, he beat Pep Guardiola more than any other manager has in the Premier League. Klopp has more, but it was in Germany. And we beat City so many more times, which is another thing we haven't done in so many years. We nearly beat Liverpool on their unbeaten. We drew with them on their unbeaten season. We nearly won, but they got a last-minute goal. Like, everybody seems to forget all of this good stuff that happened before that, when he was getting rid of Deadwood, bringing the team together, the fan base together, the hope, the everything. That is what, if you're a true Manchester United fan, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer will be remembered for. So I did a thank you post, which I'll quickly read a brief synopsis of out, and it was kind of just summing up my feelings on it, which was, he's always a club legend. He made the fan base believe again and rebuilt the squad. Don't let the last few months take away the years of great work he did before, building the foundations of what comes next for us, because that's what he's done. The next manager that comes in, they've inherited a squad that's built back together, and with some new management, some new tactics, I generally think we can do absolute bits with. So that's something to keep in mind. Really quickly, last point I want to make is about the Glazers and about the United board in general. We don't have a plan. We don't have a plan, full stop. Okay. So you're telling me, if imagine whoever you are sitting at home right now, your club, imagine they're telling you on a press conference interview or a statement that you've got an interim manager because Carrick is taking over for the next game, which is obviously on Tuesday night, which is why they have to announce it very quickly. But he doesn't know how long it's going to be for. It could be a game, could be 2 games. So he's an interim manager for an interim manager because they want to sign a real target in summer. That is a club that has zero idea of what they're doing and zero plan in place.
Well, I think you might be a little bit harsh there, because if I'm United, and we've spoken about it previously on the podcast, I think that Ten Hag's your target.
There's a few.
He's not going to come mid-season. Most managers these days don't come mid-season unless they're available.
And absolutely not. But the point is, with a Conte, the reason that apparently it was he wanted a lot of money, like 250 million or whatever. But all the managers that had before that, but the way that it was delayed, and he surely would have gone in the break after the Liverpool defeat or the City game after that. You haven't had, there's no backup plan, there's no progression, and it's been said, like, apparently insiders in the club, they don't know what they're doing. So the fact we're potentially going to bring in a Ralph Rangnick or a Laurent Blanc, someone who has a tie with the club or something, for an interim manager, I don't mind them waiting until summer to get the right target. If it is a Ten Hag is my top manager who I'd like to go in. So Dan's turned it down, which clearly they've tried to persuade him 3 or 4 times, and now it's an official no, basically. So that again proves me that they've gone after a target that doesn't want to be here. Today, all the media's linking that apparently Poch is happy to leave even halfway through the season to come to United, and he was their first target. But also, it makes sense to me because he doesn't seem comfortable in PSG. His family live in London still. So that's they can move back to England. And also, if Zidane was waiting for a French national league job or PSG, he could take over PSG. And the last time they got rid of a manager, when they got rid of Thomas Tuchel and got Poch in, was the Christmas break from December 22nd till over. So we'll let that sit how it was. But I just think it's outrageous that we don't have a real kind of plan in place. And also, for people out there for the next few games, Carrick was part of the staff from Solskjaer, along with McKenna, along with Phelan. So don't expect the tactics to change too much in the next coming weeks, because he's the one that's built the plans with Ole. So let's keep some realism in place there. But yeah, anyway, so I'm going to leave it there and just say, let's move onwards and upwards from a United perspective. But again, it's a thank you, Ole, for everything you've done, and the fans need to appreciate that, and we'll move on. So the next game that we're going to talk about after that kind of long rant, but hopefully there's some useful information there for people to hear as well, is 2 games that I did not think we'd be going for with these kind of score lines, and I put that on both of them, and it is for both of them. So we're going to start with the Newcastle Brentford one, which was 3-3, but the next game is also 3-3, which is outrageous. I don't know if you want to kick off on this one.
Yeah, I mean, this is a team of terrible defence, really, isn't it? Like this game was. I mean, we know Newcastle have got a bit of quality up top. You know, so Maximin is great. Joe Linton has been underwhelming, but has got flashes of talent.
Yeah.
Um, and Brentford, you know, we know Ivan Toney's prolific. He's doing the job. He did the job in the Championship last season. He's doing the job this season in the Premier League. So yeah, I mean, it was a great game to watch from a neutral's point of view. Had lots of goals, lots of action, lots of talking points, loads of shots. I think over 30 shots between the two teams, which is absolutely fantastic. Yeah, I don't have an awful lot more to say on that. I just think, you know, these teams they're gonna struggle a bit with their defense, especially Newcastle. You know, we've spoken about it before. You know, and there is part of me that does want them to go down, just because of the whole money situation. I think that'd be very interesting.
I don't think you're alone there. I think lots of fans would feel the same thing. I mean, I mean, you can chip in at the end if you want to say anything else. I was just going to say, basically was going to say exactly the same thing as you. Basically, everything you've put down, I'll kind of touch on as well, little points. The only thing I will say is, I was like, how ironic, I guess, or bad for the Newcastle fans that Eddie Howe's first game, he's got COVID and can't attend the match. It's kind of a bit of a letdown, but you know, the fans are ready to be like, this is it. This is the guy that's going to take us to the promised land, etc. But yeah, Toney, great equaliser 60 seconds after Newcastle took the lead. It was kind of really poor keeping, I think, from Darlow for me there. And Toney actually did a really good save on the line at the opposite end as well. So he's had some on and off, but he kind of really seemed to step up again. It was. I put the same as you, like poor goals and assists from both sides, lots of deflections and stuff like that, but it made it exciting for a neutral watching all this kind of goal fest happen. So Maxim, shout out to him, like you said, he had, for his goal, it was particularly good build-up play where he took it, real number 9 stuff, held it, shielded it, passed it on, then got into the box and scored. Great from him. The only thing I was going to put at the end were Joe Linton, as you said, really hot and cold, and has been. He had 2 chances in that game, and the last chance, they should have won it. It should have been 4-3. I actually don't know how he's lost his footing so easily. And the one thing I've seen a bit of a trend for him is when he falls and like loses himself, he almost just gives up. Like he could, if you were a real striker with a striker's instinct, and I don't mean that in an offensive way for him, real striker, but like, do you know what I mean? Like that fox in the box, that predator, you'd be scrambling on the floor trying to swing a leg at it or something. He kind of just
I think we had a similar conversation last week, or the week before, sorry. About players just looking too easy to go down, maybe not trying to stay up and take a chance.
It wasn't even a tackle, was it? He just lost his feet, and I was just like, oh, I'm just giving up. Okay.
Yeah, even if you can't get up, you like to see someone try.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like slide a leg around or something. Just don't go. Okay. Yeah. Especially when that was to win, and that would have been a ginormous 3 points for Newcastle, especially with the new manager coming in.
In the Liverpool game, I think a similar thing happened with Mane, didn't it? It kind of ricocheted off.
Yeah.
Off of Ramsdale, Mane's on the floor, and he kind of flicks a leg at it, and it just goes wide. But you know, on a different day,
it goes in.
A bit of luck, it goes in. So you like to see that sort of thing happen. Like you like to see people try for it.
Yeah, exactly. So I think they had a chance, and that was their chance wasted. I'm interested to see what Howe can do. Give him some time. He's been there hardly any time. He's had like 10 days or something. So that's fair enough. But we'll get on to the next one with a similar scoreline again, which was Burnley Crystal Palace. I'll start with this one, and then I'll pass it over to you. We'll flip it. This one, again, from a neutral perspective, I've got exciting back and forth and end to end. You know, it was one of those where it was like both teams are really just going for it, and you like to see it. And actually, both teams are in pretty good form. Like Burnley have had a good streak over a couple of games, and Crystal Palace have been outperforming what most people's expectations were. Cornier with an absolute blinder of a goal again. We said this a few times. I feel like we repeat ourselves. We're not even trying to. The players just keep doing the same thing. Like
maybe we're just good analysts, really.
Maybe we'll go with that. I like that angle better. Superb. Again, I've put down here, and I think it's true for both of them. I think that Cornet and Gallagher, they both aren't staying at their clubs. No offense to Burnley or Crystal Palace. Obviously, Gallagher is a Chelsea player anyway, on loan. But I think it's both of them have really showing their class. And you know, Gallagher didn't get a goal this week, surprise, but he got an assist still. So he's still doing bits for the team. And then similar to the last one, the last point I was going to make is like Joe Linton. Vidra had a great opportunity again to win it. You had two games with exactly the same scoreline that they both had last minute, should have scored.
Yeah, I think I mean you pretty much touched on all of the points there. Yeah, Maxwell Cornet he's a player, and he's a serious player.
He does scores really great goals now.
Yeah, and consistently as well. I mean, he's got to be a shout for any of those fantasy football managers out there who's looking for a little bit of inspiration, because I can't imagine he's in too many people's teams right now. I looked at him for sure, but I'm pretty happy with my defense at the moment. So I think he's a left back, isn't he? At fantasy football.
I don't know where he is this year. Actually, I haven't looked myself, but I imagine
I think he's a left back, which
would be a good shout.
If you've got space in your back four for him, he's a goal scoring left back. So,
and that's what you want in FPL, those gems.
Absolutely right. Reminds me of Jeffrey Schlupp a few years ago.
Yeah,
did the same sort of thing. But yeah, and talking of Schlupp, we've got Crystal Palace. Benteke, it seems they're getting goals, which is not something that they've known
for really.
Yeah, exactly. And no matter who's playing, who's on the pitch, they're getting goals somewhere. Benteke with the contributions. We've seen Edouard picking up goals recently. So if one of them's not working, the other one's doing the job, and that's the mark of a solid team. We gave Vieira a little bit of criticism at the start. We didn't think that, but you know what? He's got them playing. How long that continues, I don't know. But they're hard to break down.
Yeah, he's still going above my expectations. I think we both put our hands up already and gone, actually, let's still see what he does. Like, it's still too early at the beginning of the season to go, yeah, fair enough. But like, you can't, I already, even if my expectations were here, he's kind of already here. And I think he might finish here. Like, he's done really, really well. The Benteke thing, sorry, is really quick. I just want to point on that as well. Lots of managers, I don't think Hodgson got the best out of him either. He's on and off, but actually Vieira seems to have unlocked something of Benteke again, and he's really in amongst it again. And when they've got Zaha and Edouard, and all those players again, as you said, they're all chipping in, so they are looking.
They're playing more attacking football.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the thing, Hodgson, he's never was famous for attacking flow in football. No. If you look at Benteke at Aston Villa, all those years ago, he was playing in a team that gave him the service that attacks.
Yeah.
And he got results from that. And that's what we're seeing now, is we're seeing a Palace team who are unafraid to attack.
Yeah, and it's refreshing. And it must be so refreshing for their fans watching, like the Tim, who Adam from my club was saying the same thing. Like, you're not really a team that lots of people watch. You know what? The way they're playing, if you've got some free time on a weekend, you might be sticking the Palace game on to watch some good attacking football.
100%.
Cool. So we'll jump on from there. So I know it's only 3 goals, not 6 goals, but still the next one we'll go on to, but still 3 goals. Which was Chelsea 3, Leicester 0, which was probably not a scoreline most people would be predicting from this one.
I'll be honest, I think Leicester are washed right now. They're just not doing very well. Where have we seen them the last 2 or 3 years? They're currently sat in 12th. They're only 6 points off the relegation. So it's early in the year, sure, but they're 6 points off the relegation zone. Yet they are 8 points off the top 4. It's not looking good for them. Let's be honest. Vardy's off the boil. And I know, it happens every so often with Vardy in his career. He goes a few games without it. And I know a lot of fantasy managers have put him back in the team for this week.
Yeah,
not thinking that he'll kick on. Chelsea wasn't that game for him. We're looking at a Chelsea defense that are miserly. Do not give up goals easily at all.
Best defense in the league, in my opinion, currently.
100%, 100%. You've got Mendy, who is, in my opinion, the best. He's the best keeper in the league. You've got
best wing backs in the league, apart from maybe Trent on both sides, but
yeah, exactly. You've got solid midfield in Jorginho and Kante. Yeah. And then you've got just
Rudiger and Thiago Silva playing like he's 30, not 35 or 36.
Yeah. Chalobah, young, but just slotted straight into that first team without a problem. I mean, if you look at the team they played, they didn't have any kind of well beaters in that team. They didn't have, we don't have the likes of Lukaku in that team, but they're still scoring convincingly, and they're still winning convincingly. They're just such a good team. And you know what? From a fan of a club who never challenges for the top four. It's such an interesting race this season for me to watch.
Easily top three. Three horse race at the moment. It could be more later on, but it's them, and it's one that's really hard to call. Like we've had different weeks where people are flip flopping back, going this, and this, and Chelsea were getting the big push at the beginning when they look really dominant. I've actually put on my notes that for me there was obviously lots of other games, and even though Liverpool put more past Arsenal, for me Chelsea was the most dominant performance of the weekend, and against a opposition which I know on form Arsenal have been better recently, but Leicester from previous seasons have been a better opponent, and they just got completely rinsed. Like most dominant performance of the weekend. Wing backs and that new formation from Tuchel is outrageously scary. They're providing so much on the wings. Yeah, we said literally I put down their best defense, but and to be performing how they are without their two main strikers with Werner and Lukaku's outrageous. The Kante goal, I don't know if you agree with this. Kante goal, it was a great goal to watch actually from neutral. To me, it felt like a school pitch goal or a playground goal, because he literally was just 100%. He was just weaving and having fun, wasn't he? And that's having fun is how I put it. Like he was just like weaving past everyone, and then was just like dink, and you could tell like on a playground one of those kids would be doing it, and then be like, "Hey, that was a good goal, wasn't it?" Like
that was year 11 on the tennis courts. That was right there.
Literally.
Yeah, it 100% was. Do you know what, this Chelsea team looks like they're having fun?
Yeah,
and I think that's when a team gets dangerous. That's like the Leicester team of 2015-16. They looked like they were having fun.
Yeah.
This Leicester team, I mean,
well,
it doesn't even look like they show up half the time.
And so on that quickly, but I've got two more points to go on to Chelsea in a minute. But quickly speaking of Leicester, another thing I just wanted to bring up, I'm not trying to go back to United, but it does link to it. Again, everyone's saying Rodgers is going to come to United, and what's he offering? What's he offered Leicester in the last few weeks? Like they've looked like they're missing something too.
This is the thing. I just don't know what it is about Leicester. The team that they've got now doesn't scream quality. That's the problem, I think. I just don't know why. The likes of Iosi Perez, he's deadly. He's dangerous. He unlocks something a little bit different. They've got Patson Daka. A few weeks ago we were singing his praises. He played fantastic. Why is he not looking?
I don't know if it's injured. Don't know. Like they've had a lot of injuries. Like Vardy was injured like twice, and he was ill. And you've got Euro Tillmans that was injured as well. But players that maybe normally step up as much. And I don't. This is not a diss at him, because I think he's still been great this season and is a great player for them. Not even great. Harvey Barnes. But normally you see these players stepping up even more. And as you said, there just seems to be something missing, and they're not as careful. And if they're not lucky, someone like Tillmans is going to leave at the end of the season. Vardy's not exactly young, and they're going to start losing these players, and you don't want to see them slip much further back down when they've kind of just got up to where people are thinking of them more in that top half, European slots. But anyway, so I'll quickly bring it back to Chelsea. I had two more points. One of them was just to talk about player quickly. So Ziyech, who obviously came on, he literally looks like a man possessed. Like every time we've talked many times in this podcast about young Chelsea players getting, it's not that young, sorry, Chelsea players on the fringe, and some of them are young, but get a chance, they have to take their chance, or Tuchel's not interested. Every time he got the ball, he literally looked like it. And when he's had it in Europe as well, he's done exactly the same. So it's just a quick shout out to him, because he's looking really hot at the moment. But the only other thing I was going to say, which is slightly disconcerting if you're a Chelsea fan, and for that top, for the Prem Championship race, and even Chelsea fans that I have friends who were saying exactly the same thing. The only thing I will say is they're not clinical, because they could have easily won by 6 or 7 again. And yes, I let them off a bit because they're missing their main strikers again, as we've said, but they should be scoring more. And it's something that could become a worry later down the line, and especially against some other teams, maybe a better form or a better team. But it's something to watch, and we'll keep an eye on in other weeks, because they're fantastic, best defense, and still look good going forward, but they need to be more clinical and finishing teams off better. If it comes down to goal difference, if it's a crazy season like that, or just against other teams, they might start suffering with some of those missed opportunities. Anything more to add on that one, or I think we covered everything? I
think we are pretty covered.
But yeah, that was a good 12:30 match. So I like a good exciting lunchtime match to kick off.
Yeah.
So next one we're going to go on to it. I can't believe we're getting down the list, and now we're going to finally talk about another contender for the title, which we said a few times actually, because they've kind of sometimes gone to the radar a bit this season. But we're going to go to the City Everton game, which was 3-0 to Manchester City.
Firstly, what a goal from Rodri.
like thunderbolt,
What a goal!
literal
Absolute
thunderbolt.
ping, wasn't it? It was fantastic. Um, I liked this City team. And I liked the team that played on Sunday. And you know what it is? It's Sterling. I just think if so, he's obviously he's called in to cover. Is it Ferran Torres
Yeah.
and Grealish both injured? Sterling's not getting a look in at the moment unless it's injuries. If I was another top six team in the Premier League,
Mm-hmm.
I would be doing everything I could to get that man's signature because he's dangerous. I rate him very, very highly. I think he is. I think he is the guy for England. I
Well,
think if you look at the last two tournaments, Sterling's been, for me, our player of the
I
tournament.
literally was going to say exactly the same thing, and I was going to be like, they can talk about Calvin Phillips, but for me, it was Sterling. He was player of the tournament. That's literally what I was going to say.
Every major chance that we had came through Sterling. And a lot of people say, he maybe he shoots too much, maybe he doesn't shoot enough. I just think people don't like Sterling for some random reason. He is a very good player, and I think a lot of what we saw from that City side yesterday was from Sterling and from his willingness to make runs into the box, his willingness to take players on, to get in behind the gaps and stretch defenses. So just a special shout out for Sterling, really. But I mean, this was a solid City team versus a very, very mild Everton team, really. Everton, I don't think really got a look in.
No,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, go on. Go on.
I was just going to say they made Everton look a bit like schoolboys on the pitch, really. Everton didn't look threatening at all.
Yeah, I mean, to sum it up, I actually have one off the top of my head, but I haven't written down a single note about an Everton player or Everton at all. Literally all my notes were City because they were the same as you. They were Rodrigo, I just put in caps, Thunderbolt, like goal of the weekend easily. Great goal. They're some of my favorites though. I love seeing goals like that. I put Sterling man of the match, but again, he's using his opportunity, like we just said, to show when he gets that spotlight and he gets that time, he's going to do it. Barcelona are looking at a very real loan move for him. They might not have the money, but they're trying to push it. And he will want to go because he's pushing for game time. And when you've got that ability, you don't want to be sat on the pitch. I love players who have ability that don't want to sit on the bench. They want to play week in, week eight because they want to play football. And that is exactly it. Like, you want to play footy, you want to be doing you've got a job, you want to be doing what your job is, you want to be on the pitch showing people what you can do. So that's the thing from him. Only negative I'll say from him, he did go down a bit easily once or twice for some pen shouts. That is part of Sterling's game. He does do it. We'll move on. It was soft, didn't get called, fair enough. The last thing that I was going to say about City player, and then I did think about something for Everton, was João Cancelo. What an assist again, outside of the boot.
Oh,
Boop, just pings it, and beautiful assist. He can play left or right.
he is
again
decent. He's so decent, isn't he?
He's so good this season. He's been so good this season. He's literally City's best defender by a mile this season. And considering Ruben Dias was like runner-up for Premier League Player of the Season last year, that says something. And the only thing I was going to call out for an Everton perspective, I suddenly thought something off the top of my head after they had a nothing performance to note on. Just a Gray being injured is going to be a big hit for them, I think, with that Townsend Gray being on hot form for them, and that they could certainly start missing that.
Yeah, I also just want to point out how petulant Richarlison is. I don't like him. I think he's
always had that part of his game. Well, we said it last week. We literally said it last week, didn't we? Yeah.
Yeah, I just think he missed the next game. I think he's got his
I
5
think so.
yellows. Yeah. But I just think petulant challenge. And to be honest, you just don't want to see that in the game. He just looks like he's a bit of a nasty piece of work, to be honest. So
yeah, and it's something.
If you're listening, Richarlison, cut it out, mate.
yeah, I understand, like, fiery Brazilian, but like there's no need for it. Like, and to do it consistently, I know we've talked about Ronaldo a few times doing it, and it's like the elite mentality and stuff, but he just seems to come across as doing it for the other reasons and doing it far more. So yeah, let's cut that out. I mean, I don't think you probably want to go on to the next game because we both didn't have good weeks, but we'll go there for the listeners as we need to. Do you want me to start or do you want to start?
You start, because
Yeah,
I've got some
that's fine.
pieces to
I
say.
thought we'll do the way you did it for me. And I don't think you'll probably disagree with most things I say anyway, but by all means, tell me if you do. So I put a couple of points down. First of all, let's start with some positives. Great feat from Shea Adams to the first goal. Really, really good feat and smart finish from him. So well done for him. Carrying on that great form from Scotland. So, that's paying dividends for him transferring over nationalities and doing that. So good for him. My question mark is, could McCarthy have done better for both goals? Second one, I definitely think. First one, you can argue. I still think he could, but yeah, not as much as the second. And then kind of my last point was more around second to last point, I guess, was around Dean Smith. So obviously he literally has, as he joked about, potentially the shortest out of job in Premier League history for 8 days. But has he potentially got, I mean, it's more of a question as well for you in a minute, but has he potentially got the hardest, one of the hardest, if not a hardest job in football right now? Probably. But he can't ask for more than 3 points. And he can't, that is a massive 3 points for them. That brings them much closer. I think they're now 5 points adrift of the people behind them. So they're starting to gain momentum. And if he's coming in and, that having that manager effect that you see so much of, some new ideas and then fighting to get on that team sheet every week, that does it. And the only other thing I was going to say, which you may disagree with, I know that you had a really good second half, but I just felt like Norwich wanted it more. And that it kind of seemed to reflect a little bit in some of the play. I know Southampton did have a good second half, but they just, especially like Pookie or someone like that, just seem to stretch that a little bit more, make that extra run. And do you know what I mean? And that's really all I've got. I'll pass over to you.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things to unpick here. I mean, yeah, Shea Adams' goal taken very, very well. The biggest problem we've got this season is our inability to kill off games. We had a great first half and really, should have probably been 2 or 3 or maybe even 4-1 up at half time. As soon as we went into that half time at 1-1, I said to Shah that we would lose 2-1. Because I've seen it so many times. What followed was it was definitely the worst half of football I've seen us play this season, potentially the worst half of football I've seen us play under Ralph. And we've lost 9-0 twice under Ralph. What's so frustrating was that we weren't playing badly. We just didn't take our chances. It seemed like we were winning 3-0. We'd taken our foot off the gas and we didn't care. The substitutions were questionable. Bringing on Brozier was fine, yeah, but bringing on Walcott when I just don't think that Walcott's got it.
And that chance as well, yeah.
He had that chance right at the end that he should have buried that, and that goes to anyone else that's going in the back of the net. It's tough. It's definitely tough. I think that you're right. Norwich did want it. I don't think that it was a completely fair reflection of the game. I to be honest, I think a little bit of a smash and grab at the end there from Norwich, and fair play to him. The other thing that really irritates me is the international breaks, because you break momentum. Going into the break, we're unbeaten in 4. We've got a really good run. We've got 10 points out of a possible 12, and we had some tough teams in there. So to come to then international break. At the same time, Norwich have got that new manager bounce. And, in the same way, if you're in bad run of form and you get an international break, that's what's needed sometimes to turn it around. The fact that we had an international break literally bloody 3 weeks ago.
3, isn't it? We've had 3 in this period instead of 2 normally, which is crazy.
It's ridiculous because teams can't keep up the head of steam that they build. So I think that's a big part of the problem. The other problem is we just can't bloody finish goals. You said about Chelsea not being clinical.
Yeah, clinical. We've talked about this, yeah.
I think we've got the highest expected goals ratio, and we just can't do it. We just can't score for some reason. We're taking the most shots. We are just not doing it, and something's not clicking at the moment. The other point I wanted to make, I mentioned it briefly earlier about the fans, is we've had 4 games before this where no one said a word about Ralph out. As soon as we lose one game, everyone's jumped back on the Ralph out bandwagon. Are you serious? I do think, there was a time about 3 or 4 weeks ago when I was questioning Ralph. I think the substitutions, he maybe got them wrong on Saturday. I think I would have I would have made some more positive attacking decisions. I think that we actually might have missed Redmond, who was off because his wife had given birth.
Yeah, labour.
You know, which is absolutely fantastic for him. But I think we were missing him. Diallo on the right wing was a bold choice. He played well, but he's not a winger. Again, we've got Nathan Teller sat on the bench. I'd love to know what he's done wrong to not get on. But for the fans to come out and start lambasting Ralph when actually we took 10 points from our previous 12 against some tough teams. Yeah, we would have expected to beat Norwich, but they have got a new manager bounce. It was always going to be a tough game for us, and the international breaks broken momentum. I think the other point here is, and really where I think the fault lies on Saturday is Alex McCarthy. There's three certainties in life, and that's death, taxes, and Alex McCarthy being beaten at his near post.
Oh, you've seen it a lot.
Honestly,
yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've seen him get beaten
And
at his near post.
Especially, sorry to cut you off, especially how Fraser Forster played in the cup against Chelsea, was it? Like you were saying that you've got some issues and there's lots of back and forth with him, but McCarthy's had several games this season where he's let goals in. Give him, is it time to switch and have another go for Forster?
Actually, let's give him his credit. I think
last week, yeah.
Other than last week, before last week, certainly, he had the second highest clean sheets.
Yeah.
In the Premier League, he is the second highest point scoring keeper in fantasy football. He's played well. The thing with Forster, and everyone keeps banging on about put Forster in goal, but Forster's leaving at the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
McCarthy is staying because they're only offering one contract, and I'm pretty sure at this point it's going to McCarthy. Yeah. McCarthy will be staying as an understudy. They've already said that they will be buying a new keeper this year. And we're looking at the likes of Sam Johnston from West Brom. I think who would be a fantastic signing. Maybe this is a case of where we need to fast track that. I think there are two very easy saves to make from a Premier League standard goalkeeper. And I think that realistically was the difference in the game. Tim Krul is experienced, and I think he's a great shot stopper.
Yeah, he's had some up and downs the last few weeks as well, but he made some good saves against you. Yeah,
I think that was solely the difference, really. That and Norwich wanted it.
Yeah, and also going on your fans thing, and also the Ralph subs thing as well. Like it seems to be he was kind of old Ralph for a little bit, where he's making some questionable choices and maybe some questionable decisions. But as Southampton fans, it's one game. Like I know all games are big games, and it's against someone you hope to pick points up off. But let's see over the next couple of games whether he goes back to kind of newer Ralph. And exactly. It's these jump on the bandwagon, one game, everything breaks down. We talked about a million times and we will more. It's the social media era.
Yeah, and the other thing is obviously Stuart Armstrong wasn't fit. That's a big loss for us. Stuart Armstrong is arguably our biggest creative there. I'd have liked he would have started on that right wing instead of Diallo. I think a lot of our stuff comes through it. The other thing I'd like to say as well is I think we played better with Prowsey out of the team. As much as I love Prowsey, I think we played better without him in the team.
And some clubs it is like that. And you don't see that very often because of his consecutive starts. And you did look really good. I mean, hopefully you can adapt with him because obviously he is your captain and a very important person for you. But
the other thing, I think a lot of teams have figured out not to give us free kicks now because we just don't get fouled outside the box.
Yeah, I mean
we don't get opportunities.
So deadly.
Well,
yeah,
exactly. We just don't get the opportunities. No one takes anyone down outside the box anymore. They'd rather see. Well, at this point, why not just fucking invite him to shoot? Because Southampton can't score at the moment, so there's no bloody problem, is there?
True. I mean, all I'll say quickly at the end there is it'll be an interesting argument at the end of the season whether people come sniffing again, which they probably will, even like a Newcastle for a Prowsey, whether that could be a factor later on that you might go, do we play better? Do we not?
Well, I mean, the bottom line is I think if someone comes in with the money, we'll take it. But that money's going to be on our terms. He's just signed a brand new contract.
Yeah, exactly.
He's not going for less than 60 million.
Yeah, but someone like Newcastle could easily fork that out. So that could be a match made in heaven.
If they want to spend £60 million on James Ward-Prowse, who isn't worth £60 million. Yeah, he's got a dead ball, but game influence, he's not there. He's not the be all and end all for us. We'll take it. 60 million,
invest it into the squad. Yeah.
exactly right. And for a team like Southampton, that's how we do business. So
Absolutely.
anyway, we'll move on.
Yeah, no worries. We've both been like that. I mean, I'd love to sit in next week and both be happy for once. But we'll see. As we said, we both got very difficult games, so maybe not. But moving on to the last few, we'll get through a couple of these, and then I've got quickly to touch on at the end. I know we're running on, but it's been a week to get some thoughts out, so that's fine. Next one I've got down here is the Spurs Leeds game. 2-1 to Spurs. I've got down here Conte's first win. I think again too early to tell, and he's settling in still. I like from a manager, he was really egging the crowd up at the end to get them going and stuff, and he really wants that. So that's cool, showing passion. Kane, we talk about it all the time, but he's getting closer, but he's scored an outrageous amount of goals for England and not for Spurs. I think that he will get there. Lots of people who were talking about sneaking into fantasy league teams. I've seen lots of people potentially trying to make a Kane swap because they think at some point when it's too early to bring him in. I'm not sure just yet. He is getting there, and he had a couple of opportunities, but nothing where you're like, he's definitely going to get that, like clean shots. It was always he's stumbling or trying to do too much or anything like that. Dan James, congratulations for him getting his first goal for Leeds. He obviously was always supposed to sign for Leeds, literally had his picture taken in the shirt and everything before the United move came in. And then obviously his dad died and he wanted to be a Manchester United player, and it was a whole thing. But I think he's really good for that Leeds squad. He was a good rotation player for United, but I think he's going to get into that role leaps and bounds in the Leeds squad. He works really hard and he's electric quick. He's probably one of, if not the fastest player in the Premier League. And he wanted him, or he got to that, pushed across, went across his man and got in the end of that. So more to come from him, I'm sure. And my last point was Spurs fans, I think, will still be expecting to see a little bit more from their squad, especially with Conte coming in. Yes, they got a goal from a dire free kick and it pinged off the post, and Reguilon got in there and got a goal. But I don't think it was the best performance, even though they played much better in the second half. They will be expecting a lot more from what's to come from that Spurs squad.
Yeah, I don't have an awful lot to add. I just want to point, I think Spurs were lucky, to be honest. I don't necessarily think that they deserve the win. I think maybe a draw would have been a fair result here. I think you'd be a little bit hard done by as a Leeds fan, to be honest. I think they're a bit lucky, but you got to take the luck in the game. Sometimes that's the difference between you really kicking on and getting a string of wins in, is that one lucky win. So fair play to Conte. It's first one on the board. It's going to feel good.
Yeah. Let's see what it goes.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Next one, speaking of a new manager, I have a little bit more to speak about on this one, and then we've got one after this, which I don't have much. So we're going to move on to the Villa-Brighton game, which again, I would expect to be higher up. There was a lot of news surrounding this, and obviously with Steven Gerrard's first game in charge of Aston Villa after the departure of Dean Smith. So yeah, Gerrard's first game. One thing I quickly want to point out was, and I really like this from Gerrard, before when he took the job and was having all the press conferences, I like the fact he was like, there was quotes from people going, you're just using this as a stepping stone for the Liverpool role. And he came out and was like, I'm not thinking about the Liverpool role. I'm 100% dedicated on this role. I like that he's coming out and saying that. He looks like the real deal when it comes to trying to take his managerial role very seriously. He showed the passion for it, like some of his celebrations, some of his like reactions to misses and chances and all that stuff. It shows that he's invested and he's there for the long run, not thinking about jumping ship in a year or two to Liverpool. I think he's actually thinking about becoming a Premier League manager for a very long time, and that's good to see. Massive save for Martinez in the first half is what I wanted to point out from a player as well. When he came out, made himself really big and got that block. If Brighton score that one, might have seen a whole different game if that's going in right at the end. So that's an interesting point. Obviously, Steele was making his Prem debut after Sanchez obviously not playing because of getting sent off and having a red card. Do you know what? He had some good saves, and I think he did himself well for a Premier League debut. Was just one to point out there. Speaking of players, great goal from Ollie Watkins. Really just like bullied them for that goal and just pushed them off, made the angle that he wanted and slotted it with a very good finish. He did have another chance later. Well, I think that's Ollie Watkins all over, that you see him have a great chance and then miss a couple of chances. Brighton, well, I mean, you can pick up on this as well, I'm sure. Brighton obviously had a really hot purple patch start. Have they hit their like peak and now they're going to drop, or is it a blip? I don't know. It seems to be more of they're on a decline. I don't think it's a steep decline, but I think they're on the decline from the crazy form that people weren't expecting from a Brighton team. And finally, just I kind of want to hand over to you, which is how I've kind of written the question down, which is I think Villa will do really well under Steven Gerrard, and maybe they might not get to the heights just yet of what Villa fans thought they wanted this season, or sorry, expected, I should say, under Dean Smith this season. But and I'm sure we had a lot to say about it, and you did as well. But I think you'll probably assume as well that Steven Gerrard will do a better job with this squad than Dean Smith would.
Yeah, agreed. I still don't think they are European challengers. Realistically, I see them probably occupying the same sort of space as I'd like to say Southampton do, the kind of 10th to 15th kind of position. That's not a bad thing. Saying you're the 10th to 15th best team in England is not a bad thing at all. I do think they've got there are a few players short of making a push for the top half of the table at this point. I think the result was a little bit flattering. For much of the game, it was fairly straightforward. Not the most exciting game in the world. We to talk about Brighton, I did say a few weeks ago I thought that their run would come to an end pretty swiftly, and it has done. Really, I think teams have kind of worked out a little bit.
Do you think Potter will get it back a bit? Do you think it's like a blip for a few weeks and then kind of steady again, or do you think it's proper decline now?
The thing is, when you look at that Brighton team, you don't see there's not really any like standout players. I think the Brighton are missing a few kind of marquee signings, of a few kind of real ballers. I think, for lack of a better word. Interestingly, Neil Maupay wasn't starting. Top scorer for them this season. Yeah. Solly March as well has been quite instrumental for him. So I think maybe they've gone in with slightly different game tactic. Obviously, I don't support Brighton. I don't know the ins and outs of that club. I don't know if Maupay had an injury or anything like that. But I mean, just looking at this, I think they played a kind of 5-3-2 with Lallana up top with Trossard. Lallana's not a striker. That's not the position I play Lallana in. If you're going to score goals, you're not going to have Lallana up top. So I think, it's an interesting one. I don't think they've got the legs. I think they've done their little bit, much like Southampton did this time last year. Did the little bit, and it's just going to drop off a little bit now because you can't sustain it because you haven't got the depth, the quality and depth.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I think I think it's more like a slow trajectory down. I don't think it's a crisis for them yet. And I think Graham Potter's done a fantastic job, and they will start to pick up points. But yeah, they need to get back into the swing of things and get their team their players like Maupay back in the goals and back on the team sheet, and that's the way to go for them. Last game, I've got very little to touch on, and then sort of quickly talking a story. I'm aware that we've talked a lot this episode, but we've talked on some big things for both of our clubs, so that's important. So the last game, obviously, of the weekend was the West Ham Wolves game, which did not go how anyone thought, which was Wolves winning 1-0. Do you want to start on this one?
Well, you say that, but actually, Wolves are a bit of a dark horse at the moment.
I mean, three straight home victories for Wolves, so that's good for them. They're on a bit of a run, but I think just how good West Ham have been, you were expecting probably a West Ham win.
Yeah, I think you probably were. I think the form books would probably show you towards the West Ham win. I think Wolves just dealt with them really well, to be honest. It was for all intents and purposes a fairly dull game.
Yeah,
wasn't an awful lot to talk about. There wasn't an awful lot to see. I just think that Raul Jimenez he's looking dangerous again.
Yeah, I put that. I was like, I just put more the fact it's so nice to see him scoring, especially after, I don't know if you saw the clip of that documentary coming out about how Nuno was literally in tears thinking about the situation with him, and it's great to see him back in the goals. Yeah,
absolutely. I think it's well deserved. They're kind of flying under the radar at the moment, and they've got a bit of a resurgence going on. And if you look at them now, they're only 3 points behind West Ham in the league. They're sitting pretty in sixth. You'd be very happy with that. Again, I'd question whether they've got the legs to continue it.
Yeah, me too.
But for the time being, you just got to get them points in, so you're not dragged into a battle at the other end of the table. And that's what this part of the season's all about for the other. The other 14 teams in the league, really.
Absolutely, and exactly that. I think with the new manager coming in, nobody thought they'd be where they are right now. So he's doing a good job, and they're doing a good job in general. I think West Ham, it could be the same question with the Brighton thing about, is it a blip or is it a game? I think it's a game. I think West Ham, we said the same thing of them. They're going to have the drop off, but I don't think they'll drop off as hard as Brighton potentially will, because they have the squad, in my opinion, working together. Moyes has got them looking good. So I think next week or the week after, they'll bounce back and start picking up a few more. So, but not really much more. As I said, it wasn't the best game. And it was a 1-0. But I think there's a lot of games this weekend people might have predicted that went different ways, and a lot of drama and a lot of goals. So that's kind of it for the games anyway. I've got one more thing I just want to talk about. I'll try and keep it fairly brief because we talked about a lot of other stuff. So we like to do a funny story at the end. This isn't a funny story at all, but I think it's a really important one to pick up on, and we do sometimes hit the hard subjects. And as this is a community FC channel talking about community and welcoming people into football, this goes against everything about that. So people might be guessing now, but I'm talking about the French league. I'm talking about Ligue 1, which was the Dimitri Payet story, which was a game between Lyon and Marseille, which happened on the weekend, which was called off after 5 minutes of play because Dimitri Payet was struck by a bottle, and a full bottle of water at that, thrown at quite a big speed. So that's going to hurt. Hit him kind of in the back of the neck / back of the head, which is outrageous anyway, because how they've got away with that in the stands anyway, let alone anything else with a lid on it, etc., etc. That's a whole different story. This has been something that's been going on in the French league for a while now, and they're having a lot of problems since coming back from COVID. They've having people back in the stadium. They need to sort it out ASAP. They need nets. They need teams that are getting caught with this being banned. And actually, I've got a quote here from the sports minister in France. I'm probably going to butcher the name. I don't know the last name. We'll stick with the first name. So the first is Roxana, is the sports minister in France. And they have said, quote, sorry, that it's French football is at stake, is the quote from them, because something really needs to change quickly, because if they don't, they're getting this, hooligan issue. They have had problems in France on and off for a long time, but seeing that and then seeing a game called off literally after 5 minutes, and then, sorry, I forgot to say that the game was actually halted for 2 hours and then was officially called off. It didn't finish because of the situation, because of the fans. And then you've had, people in France, ministers coming out going, this is not, something needs to change or we're in real trouble here. When you've got the money coming in from a sponsor like Uber Eats, because it's the Uber Eats league, isn't it, at the moment, they're going to pull out if stuff like this happens. You've got Lionel Messi, one of, if not the greatest player, depending on where you standpoint in your league, trying to be the shining light and stuff. You don't want all this negativity going on it. And also, we just don't want anything like that in our game, full stop. It's disgusting behaviour, and that really needs to be sorted out ASAP. I don't know if you want to quickly touch on anything I've said.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you are doing that sort of stuff, whether it be at a Premier League game, whether it be throwing abuse, throwing bottles, whether it's being racist, homophobic, sexist, if you are doing any of that stuff, then you don't deserve to enjoy the game of football. You don't deserve to be sat in a stadium full of people who just want to be there and be safe. And that's what it is at the end of the day, whether that's being safe from physical violence or emotional violence. People don't expect to come and follow a team that they love to be abused. People don't expect to play a game to entertain you and be physically abused. If you do that, you're a problem and you need to stop, because you will be stopped, because this won't be, you won't be able to get away with this,
Yeah.
And the other thing is if you see people doing this and you don't do something about it, you are complicit. You are part of the problem.
luckily, as we touched on a few weeks ago, like with the racism at the Liverpool game, and they've said that it was actually their own fans that reported them and got all that sorted. So fans are starting to take notice and will stand up against you, and we applaud every single person that does that. Obviously, don't put yourself in harm's way to get that across. You can tell stewards whatever it is at the games, but you need to root it at your own club. You know, you are responsible for how your club acts too, and kind of the same message in a different sense and a much more serious sense. We talked earlier about not being a real fan by having certain views, and so that doesn't make you a fan of the club. In my opinion, acting like that makes you not a fan of football. So
Agree.
this is
There's a big change now, and it's not just in football, it's across all aspects of life where people are standing up and saying, well, actually, no, we're not going to accept that behavior anymore. We're not going to tolerate that behavior anymore. It might have been fine for you to do that in the 80s, but we're not accepting it now. In England, I think, you know, arguably we might be a little bit further ahead than the continent. You know, I'm aware that in a lot of grounds now, you have the ability to text a number to report seats. I don't know if that happens in France. I don't know if that happens across the continent. But in the UK, we have the ability to do that now, which is obviously instrumental in stopping this from happening. Football should be an inclusive place. Everyone, you know, everyone loves football. Everyone who loves football should feel safe in loving football. Just like anyone in the real world should feel safe doing what they want to be doing. It's just, honestly, it's unacceptable. And from a human to human interaction, it's just disgusting that you think it's fine to treat someone like that.
Yeah, I mean,
you know, someone has gone to that game and wanted to hurt someone, and that's what they've done. They've thrown a bottle and it's hurt someone, and that, you know, could have been a hell of a lot more serious.
Absolutely. Like if that was a coin that we've seen before, all sorts of stuff, doesn't matter if it's a water bottle, that still hurts when you get, if next time you do that, imagine someone throwing a full water bottle at you and you're not knowing, it's going to hurt. But I couldn't have summed it up better myself. Absolutely. Everyone needs to take accountability. It's something I want to spring up. And I kind of apologize for this being a dark and heavy episode in one sense, but I don't in another sense, because speaking about my club and other things, and this point here, like they're important things that we want to focus on Community FC, and that is one of the main goals of Community FC, is talking about football, different clubs, and how everyone acts in the game. We want to save the game that we love. This is the stuff that has to be rooted out, and we have to evolve, and we have to make that better for everyone. So it has been a slightly different episode, but I hope it's been an informative episode nonetheless, and some light-hearted moments sprinkled in there. But if you have been liking this content, you know, don't forget to give us a like. It really helps us. Let us know you've been liking the content. Give us a comment down below if you've got anything you want to get involved with. We're happy to get involved in the comments and chat about football, chat about story, chat about anything you want to talk about really in the comments. We'll love to get involved. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, because it really helps us out as well, and also gives you the ability to view more content like this. And if you hit the notification bell, you get notified every time we go live. We try to keep a fairly good schedule at the moment, but obviously things can change. So if you want to know exactly when the videos go up or to be reminded, that's the way to do it. So yeah, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe. And we'll be back next week as always for the Roundup review. And potentially a My Club coming this week. I haven't sorted the guest just yet. We're waiting and seeing if we do get the person I think it is. It could be a very interesting episode. If not, maybe future weeks. But yeah, this has been the Roundup review. Rich, thank you very much for coming on as always.
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. And yeah, let's hope for both of us we have better results next week. We've both got very hard games, but we will see. But that's what makes football interesting. So thank you very much for watching. We'll catch you all very soon. Thanks very much.